that takes time, so,
Well, you got that 48-hour notice, so you're gonna have to plan for
but
it.
I have to go through Stacy to get that set up on the website as a
So how much
Secretary
time
of
do you need,
State.
Sharon? 3 days?
It depends on what they're doing down there, but I have to fill out forms, they have to be signed by the chair, they have to go to the Secretary of State's office, they have to set it up on the information, just like the NSTA subcommittee and the NSASSP subcommittee. Those are all set up in the Secretary of
So
State.
how much, what would you get out of it?
Last time I did it, it took about 3 days.
So a week maybe?
Yeah,
Okay.
just in case, because it's always Stacy I go through, I don't know if they have anybody fill in for her, if she should be out of document.
Yeah, just to close the circle on that, the AG has done a few presentations on that. If you go to the Attorney General's website, it's on, I think it's online, right? Their presentation is
You
online.
can download their,
Yeah, you can download
they have a
it.
YouTube too.
Yeah, it's on YouTube too, so you can watch it on YouTube, you get there. I went, but like I said, I've read the books, but I really recommend people go to it. And I know we have one in town, I think the town administrator has it out in town one time a year too, them being the AG. 3, balancing demands on staff to complete the regular school business. I didn't have it down for a vote, you know? I don't act in the best interest of the students, but I'm concerned that there's a lot of requests that are being put on staff. As a parent, not a school committee member, I want to make sure that, you know, the needs of the school is being met, and I think there's a lot of requests that are put on it. I believe the town council has a protocol whereby, I'm sorry, I believe the town administrator had asked that all requests be sent to her. And then she approves whether to have them, you know, to go to the different people. She sent an email on that, I believe, and asked all the departments. Just not any one department, just all the people who are asking within the town to funnel requests through here. I don't know what our policy should be, but I think we need something to work to deal with the number of requests and some kind of filter on how much time, particularly Lisa, and to a lesser extent Suzanne, but all the staff are spent doing requests and Alicia putting paper together.
Well, in the past, the practice has been that all requests will go through Steve, CC to Sherry. And then they get distributed to him or
Follow the
whatever.
same
you know.
protocol Paulette asked me to follow, so if I have a request to any department, I go to Paulette.
Right, that's right. I know you said that. But what about in terms of managing the weight of the work?
Yeah, well, I think that comes with the request. I think that was the reason why, you know, we got a plethora of requests and we didn't act on them right away because we felt like that the committee, we need the committee to weigh in because you did bring up a good point. Some of the suggestions are good and we need time to work it out, but some, I think what happens is if it's a plethora of reports that are gonna require Lisa to do manually, we don't have that kind of time, so we want to be able to use the system as much as we can to produce the reports. So I think we'll know better after the subcommittee meeting, where it's going and what we can provide and what we, you know, what's going to really inhibit their workload. So I appreciate you putting it on, but yeah, it's really different than, for instance, Mrs. Nato has made some good requests, so she'll call. She'll look at the packet on the weekend. Before the Tuesday meeting, she'll call Alicia or Lisa and ask a question about, you know, the accounts payable. And we'll get her an answer. That's a different request than, can I have this report, and can I have that report, and can I have this report this way and that way. I think that's when the whole committee has to weigh in. And I think in order to get a grip on this, if you allow the subgroup to meet first, and we can come back to you kind of with, okay, here's the requests that we can do that make sense going forward. So that's kind of how I would suggest the committee to get a grip on it. Let's kind of, because you're right, you're dealing with two people primarily that are running that office and a $24, $25 million budget. So we do have to respect their load and their time. So my suggestion would be to allow that subcommittee meeting to happen, and let's talk about the requests and what we can produce from the system and what we
Sure.
can
You
produce.
said subcommittee, that's Mike, Merit,
Yeah.
and, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
John and myself.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Mike is on the budget committee.
Okay. Very good. Well, whoever that's.
Yeah, we'll figure it.
Sure, we'll figure it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Mike?
you can't preclude people from filing APRA requests.
No, you can't.
Nope.
So if they want to file it as an APRA request,
They
whether it's a
I don't
committee
think I said
member or not,
anything about that. So, yeah, as a school
Okay, I just
committee
want to
member,
make sure we're
you could
clear.
also, you could absolutely file an APR request, and
Yep.
if there's an existing document, you would get it. If not, we don't produce it.
Yeah.
But I think what you're looking for, Mike, is for us to work collectively and collaboratively on producing something, which is different, because if you submit an APRA request, if it doesn't exist, we're not gonna produce it.
Yeah, I want to clear, that's what I'm addressing, well, I'm primarily addressing the creation of documents, not, producing documents that we have, because I said anybody can do an APRA request.
Right.
However, as a member of an elected body, I think everybody, the school committee should still be cognizant of the fact that our staff has a lot of work to do, and should bear that in mind when they ask for requests. I mean, it's a balancing act. Should just be, it's part of being courteous. It's kind of being courteous, everyone think about their time too. I don't have anything to say.
Well, Bill, most of these requests that are on this are for documents. They're not for generating new reports. They're for documents that already exist. The, copy of the adopted school project, or budget, copy of the budget committee report, or invoices, purchase orders. Those are documents that already exist, so.
But I understand that some reports have been requested too. I mean, I'll look, it's marked up, exactly.
They do, but like Alicia just saying, invoices and purchase recs and all those things take,
You wouldn't imagine the time that
you
takes. I
can't
mean,
imagine the tremendous amount of time
It's
it
not like
takes.
the well-oiled machine that has $1 million system. I mean, we can't just go into the system and find them. We have to actually go into the moldy basement and start digging through boxes of things. I mean, it's crazy, really, the amount of time that it takes.
But his comment was, if I understood him correctly, he wasn't limiting requests for documents that exist, and everybody has the right to file an APRA request for an existing document.
Yes, but
There's
as
a
a,
difference.
yes, but also, I mentioned the fact that, but as a member of the department, we're not just members of the public, we're also part of the elected school committee, a hybrid school committee as well. We're part of a hybrid school committee. The people who are making a lot of requests are our staff. We've got to be aware of when you make a request. Yes, legally, just because you can make a request, sometimes you have to think about, well, you might want to ask, is your time, you have to give me this. I don't really ask many requests from people, but if I do, I always ask if you have the time, or whatever your time, what's your time frame to get back to me. I don't say I demand this by the next meeting. I insist on having this by the next meeting. I never demand anything. And I think that's just a matter of courtesy. I can't make people be curious. It's just a matter of, I want to put it on the record, I think people should be.
I think it's that the information is asked in, say 10 different ways. The information was given, it's given, it's given, it's given. It's just how many different ways. So finally, the last time, Lisa just dumped it, and everybody can do what they want with it. And, no manual manipulation on our part. We dump it from the system, and everybody can do it his way, her way, however they want to do it. That way, the information isn't being put out there over and over and over and over again in all these different forms. But that's something that we have to agree on and move forward, and hopefully just create one report that everybody's happy with every single time.
Okay, I'm finished with that. 4, I'll table,
Yeah.
because I really said everything I want to say. And 5, Mike,
I'm sorry.
5, Bob.
Oh, I just want clarification on that. You have a copy of it in your packet, I believe. But the bylaws say any individual school committee member's request to have an item placed on the agenda shall be granted, provided the request is presented and distributed in a timely fashion. I mean, when I read that, there's no prerogative there. It's, if you give it to them in a timely manner and the agenda hasn't been published within the timelines, it's got to be placed on the agenda.
Well, I'd like to respond to that pretty briefly. Mike, I know we had a disagreement about the special meeting in particular. Under the agenda, there's also, first of all, the duties of the chair under Article 6, which you don't have, and you reference, it says duties of the chair. The chair shall exercise such powers and perform such duties as are fixed by statute and is usually dealt upon the presiding officer of the deliberative body, and unless otherwise restricted by these bylaws or other committee established policies, shall appoint all special committees. And Sherry, I want to ask you, is there a policy in place now in terms of schedule that people, my understanding was people email the request to you or to Steve, and the superintendent and I get it review back to me, and then we look at the weight of the calendar, and we try to put it on at the meeting if we can. I don't think we denied many meetings, we denied many meetings. Mike, I know you did have some special meeting, it was asked, I said that I wouldn't deny your request, I was putting it over 6 days. So, you know, it's on the agenda, it doesn't say, by the way, it doesn't say which agenda, it just says on the agenda. I mean, 6 days later, it was put on. But Sherry, am I right about that policy, that tradition that we have?
Standing practice has been for items to be placed on the agenda, they have to be approved by the chair. Usually, the request goes to the chair with a copy to the superintendent and to me. When the chair then notifies me that that item should be placed on the agenda, I do.
So that's like the tradition that's come forward, so to
That's the
speak.
way it's, yeah.
That the duty,
Is it contrary to the bylaw?
That's what I'm getting at.
I don't think so. I think that this, under Article 4, duties of the officers, if you're looking at one bylaw, I'm looking at the whole bylaw, and it says duties of the chair. I believe, that's my interpretation of it.
Well, the duty, sorry.
I think, you know, we can revisit the policy, but that's my interpretation of the rule.
Is that how you interpret it, Ben?
Processing.
Oh, okay.
I do believe it does say shall.
It does say
It does say
shall.
shall.
The problem, and this is what I was trying to get at in my emails to Mike, and I don't think it went to everybody, I think in the end it just went to me and Mike. And then I sent a copy to Art, and I said, please help me. And his response was, ha ha ha. So, so in the absence of the committee being available, the chair always traditionally, in every single district that I represent, engages in certain activities to facilitate meetings for the committee and exercises discretion. So sometimes that discretion varies from what's in the bylaws. So the process that committees use when they don't like the discretion that's been exercised is they overrule the chair. So I think one of you asked me earlier whether or not Bill made a decision and one of you disagreed, and my response was, the chair makes a ruling. If the committee doesn't like a ruling, somebody makes a motion and they overturn that, and then that becomes the authority for the committee. So Bill is gonna operate in a certain way, or any chair is gonna operate in a certain way, and the committee doesn't like that. I think it's incumbent on you then to give him direction. And if a majority of you want something done a certain way, that's fine. I don't think that precisely answers your question.
No.
May
But
I
I
ask
think
a
it's
question?
pretty much the best I can do. That's really how committees function and chairs function.
In regard to getting something on the agenda, how do we do that to get something on the agenda? Let's say our chair,
Says no.
he sees the whole agenda,
He
he
says
says
no.
no.
So you wait till the next
We
meeting.
can't contact each other to get it put on that agenda, so
Well,
we have to
You
wait.
can discuss an agenda item, right? So that's not a violation of the
I don't
open
contact
meetings.
anybody because I'm afraid I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I'm gonna violate
That's
something.
that's not a violation of the open meetings law. If you contact somebody to discuss putting an item, a topic on the agenda, you just can't discuss the topic. So you can do that, and you won't get into trouble for doing that.
Say that
You
again,
can
Ben.
you can discuss the agenda item, but you can't get into.
You can't discuss the
discussion.
item.
You
Oh,
can't
yeah.
discuss the item.
What
You
the
can
item,
discuss putting it on, but you can't.
What it is.
Right, you can't get back up, you
Yeah.
can't discuss the item, it's just an
So you
item.
can't explain why you want it on the agenda.
Correct.
No.
Well, when would you know from
Right,
the chair if
and-
your item wasn't going to be put on?
Well, the chair would have to tell you, but maybe what you need to do is come up with a different kind of process. And the process should have a couple of considerations, because from what I hear the chair saying, he's exercising his discretion to say no when he feels that there's too much on the agenda already. So, and this isn't to be critical, but if you look at the time and you look how many more items you have,
Yes.
you may wanna consider a rule that either limits the time of the meeting, which will self-limit the amount of the items that you're gonna have, or you may wanna consider being more liberal in terms of how important is it that it has to be on this meeting and can it be on at the next meeting? So I think right now, there's no play. I want this on the agenda, and it's gonna go on the agenda, and Bill is saying, wait a minute, it's either too much work to prepare for the administrators, or you're not gonna get good information, or you're gonna have like a number of these items you put on the agenda, and Lisa's not here, You just had to pass them to another meeting, but you still have this long agenda. So there has to be some reasonability injected into this, and I don't think it is right now. It's just like, what is the rule? We're gonna look by the rule or not, and I think you gotta be a little more rational, I think, with the application of the rule.
I also want to point
I
out.
should let John come up with the rule, because he's agreeing.
Sure.
with me.
Anybody who didn't see
Yeah.
the emails that went around that, the request, I think, like, this generated this was to put it on to the special meeting on Wednesday. Wednesday was Veterans Day. I really did not want to schedule a meeting at all on Veterans Day. However, the superintendent had contacted me, and there was a deadline, a specific deadline, that the PBIC had to get the step one application into the Department of Ed by, and they wanted to make sure that the school department had a chance to review that in time. The deadline was Monday. We're meeting on Tuesday, so we would have missed the deadline. So that had to go on. The other request that was asked, and like I know, and I'm not saying you did this in bad faith, but I know you asked for something. My interpretation was that is not something that needs to go on that meeting. That meeting has to focus, it's a special meeting on a holiday. And and then I said, I told you right up front, we're gonna put it on. I'm not denying the request. We'll put it on 6 days later, so I don't see any harm. But I do want to point out, how many people were here tonight? Did we get about 50, 60 people?
Yeah.
So, yeah, how many people were at the Wednesday night meeting? 'Cause my concern was people would, one sitting right next to you. So nobody from the public made it to that meeting. I think it's better to have these as much as possible at the regular meeting. That's my philosophy. If you want to disagree with me, overrule me, you know? We can have meetings on holidays. I'm not gonna go because I don't think people are gonna go to it.
I think the issue, though, was, Bill, the request that I was making was kind of time sensitive, because I initially started out by asking, could we have a meeting with Lisa to discuss the status of the budget and draw up the budget document that would give us a picture as to where we were, because we were being requested to spend money from the surplus account, and my argument was, if we look at the budget now, we might actually find that this year's operating budget has money available to cover those items. So that's why I didn't want it on this agenda. I was hoping to get it on the special agenda so that we'd have a discussion of it. We could, get clear indication of what we would have for tonight, so we could go forward tonight with any recommendations for spending money, not necessarily from the surplus account, but from this year's operating budget. So sometimes it's time sensitive, and I think it was time sensitive. And again, I initially asked for a meeting with Lisa and never got that. But I wasn't trying to, I wanted to do it in the least disruptive way. And I thought a meeting with Lisa was the least disruptive way, but that wasn't granted either. So,
I wasn't denied either, Mike. We got the request, I don't know how many days ago. Lisa had a full plate. She wanted to get caught up to speed before she left with her husband. She did the best she could.
She said to me, I'll be happy to meet, but I need the chair or the superintendent to say, okay. And then I never heard back from her. So.
Yeah, we keep going around.
Yeah, look, Leanne, I'm sorry, Ms. Gillette.
That's okay. I just want to throw this out there, and I might not be the friendly
just
face
throw it
right
out.
now. I'm going to. Obviously, all these things we're talking about, there's a big elephant in the room. And I'm friends with Mike. I'm friends with, people on this board. We all, in my opinion, need to just accept our board has changed. We've had people resign, we've had people appointed, we've had people elected, we've had people bounce around. It is what it is. We need to work together.
Yep.
There have been people that have been out of order in this room tonight, yelling things out. Mike makes requests. We all know Mike makes requests. Some of us make requests. I think we can all agree, and I think Mike will agree, he makes more requests than others. His intentions are very good. It might be very demanding on the staff. It might be very, time consuming. We're asked to consider that. I think going forward we can consider that, but we do need a little bit of leniency because we have Mr. Lombardi coming on board. He's gonna have to be brought up to speed on a number of things. It took me a while to get my feet wet before I even spoke sitting up here because it's overwhelming. There's a lot of information. You can't talk to somebody. There's just a lot. I think everybody just kind of needs to pull back the reins, including people that are here, including people that have left. Cut some people some slack. We're trying. We can't talk outside of here. So sometimes this is when we hear everything. Most of the time, this is when we hear everything. We've got to work together. But right now, there's no unity. We're supposed to be working with you And right now, I feel like we're butting heads in some cases, and we're not gonna accomplish anything. Everybody just needs to step back for a minute and just, I'm not gonna agree with everybody on this board. They're not gonna agree with